Nami had one of the biggest changes in 14.7 where her E and W damage was reduced but her heal and bounce modifier was increased. A lot of Nami mains were upset when these changes went through, honestly myself included, but this new Nami is so much more OP. Not only is this version so much stronger, but it's really easy to play. The best way to build and play her is to abuse her new AP ratio and modifier on her W. I'm not even kidding when I say this, but I think you can straight up win a fight if you can cast W twice with it bouncing 4 times total. Let me break down to you how insane this new build is. There's a lot happening in this team fight and it's a little hard to see, but I W Xin Zhao at the start of the fight and you can see the initial bounce and then the Moonstone proc. My W then bounces to a Zir and then to a Kali and another Moonstone proc goes to Xin Zhao. The reason why this is so crazy is because I have 282 AP here, which amplifies my damage and healing by 18% every bounce. Not only does W increase per bounce by 18%, but Moonstone also applies every time it heals. The base damage and AP ratios are already high on W, so if you do the math, you can see that it's just an insane amount of healing and damage. The runes for this build are simple. We're pretty much going for an enchanter setup that maximizes AP, so we're gonna go Airy, Mana Flow Band, Absolute Focus, and Gathering Storm. Make sure to always check if you're above 70% so you can get the extra AP. You can do this by looking at your runes in game. For the secondary runes, we're going to go Domination with Eyeball Collection. A lot of people ask me why I go Eyeball Collection over Zombie Ward, but it's because you can stack Eyeball Collection a lot faster than Zombie Ward. They give the same amount of AP at max stacks, but getting 10 KP is a lot faster than clearing 10 wards, allowing you to snowball the game harder. For the last rune, I go Relentless Hunter, which honestly helps a lot because Nami is pretty slow and immobile. As for the shards, we go double adaptive and scaling health. For the items, I always go boots and then immediately rush a mandate before tier 2 boots. Mandate is hands down her best item that you should always build on her. You will find so many more kill angles if you rush this item because of the utility and damage it brings. Not only do you give movement speed to your ally when you E them, but they are also able to trigger mandate themselves because the E damage counts as a slow from you. So you can speed up your ally from afar and every ability or auto slows the enemy while increasing the speed of that ally and yourself. Next, I upgrade my Ionian boots and then get a Dark Seal. Around this time, you'll get your support upgrade, and I personally like going Solstice Slay over Dreammaker. The damage reduction and damage you provide on Dreammaker is nice, but I think utility is more important for Nami because she is such a vulnerable enchanter. I value the movement speed over extra stats. We're going to want to start building towards Moonstone after this point, and depending on how many stacks you have, you can upgrade Medjayas either before or after Moonstone. I know some players are iffy about Medjayas, but this Nami build gives you a lot of utility to be safe, and the playstyle is to just sit back and buff your team. Trust me, you'll stack it up fast and not die. Now for your final item. Instead of Watchful Wardstone, we're going to keep a slot open for a pink, but we are going to buy and keep refreshing Elixir of Sorceries. I think the stats for Vigilant Wardstone aren't that great for Nami, and I'd much rather just get the Elixir. Elixir of Sorcery is insane value, being 500 gold for 50 AP and 50% mana regen, while damage to champions and turrets are true damage for 3 minutes. It might sound really troll, but because this build is so cheap, you actually end up becoming full build a lot faster than most enchanter builds. I'm comparing this to common Nami items, but finishing my build is cheaper than if you were to go 3 enchanter items. You do have to keep refreshing Elixir of Sorceries, but most of the time the game will end before you buy too many of them. This is my main build, and the only other item I flex sometimes is Oblivion Orb. Oblivion Orb is nice on Nami because her E applies it and she has AoE abilities. Morello is also 90 AP for 2.2k, which is amazing for our build. Generally, I'll replace Medjayas for it. I'll sit on Oblivion after Mandate and then upgrade it after Moonstone. I know a lot of Nami players like Staff of Flowing Water, but I don't like how you need to heal or shield first in order to get the 30 AP. Missing out on that 30 AP at the start of a W feels bad, and constantly trying to E someone beforehand to activate it feels awkward. Honestly, it's probably not that bad if you have a heavy AP team, but I'm just a hater. Here's the entire setup in one place. You go W max with Flash Heal. The hardest part of playing Nami is landing her bubble. I want to go over some tricks that make this a lot easier, starting with the one that I feel like distinguishes good Namis from great ones. That tech is the fast combo where you E yourself so you can set up for a bubble. This works because you give yourself movement speed to auto or W the enemy, and the slow makes it really easy to land a bubble. The input for this is pretty fast, and you have to be fluid as you're going to be moving as you are casting your abilities. I highly recommend using self-cast for E because it will make this a lot easier. The default for self-cast E is Alt plus E. The other bread and butter combo for Nami is the ult plus Q combo. This one is super straightforward, just ult and then follow up with the Q. As you are playing Nami, you'll have a lot of opportunities to chain bubbles on your allies' abilities. Make sure to constantly be aware of your teammates' positioning and abilities and to cue enemies to layer your bubble so that it extends the CC duration as long as possible. You should also be thinking about how the enemy moves in certain abilities. You should be able to throw out bubbles on moves that are very predictable and easy to follow. A common mistake a lot of Nami players make, which I often catch myself doing when I'm autopiloting hard, is throwing out Q on enemies that have a dash. You're pretty much never going to be able to hit these bubbles unless they are CC'd or that ability is on cooldown, so stop going for those type of bubbles. Most of the time, you want to use any of the techniques to make it easier to land bubble, but sometimes you just gotta throw it out. It's easy to land these when the enemy overextends, so make sure to punish the enemy if they ever do. Knowing that spacing is tricky and it will come with time. The best way to know is to constantly limit test and to get a feel for it. Another important interaction to think about is your target selection on W based on how much AP you have. The new threshold modifier for W is 100 AP to even out, so you should be swapping your initial bounce based on what you want. If you are below 100 AP and want to heal more than do more damage, you should start W on your ally or yourself, and if you want to do more damage, you should start by Wing the enemy. At this AP, it's honestly not that big of a change. As soon as you go over that 100 AP threshold, it becomes the opposite as now the modifier increases each bounce. So if you want to heal more, start with the enemy, and if you want to do more damage, W yourself. Once you have high AP, this is when it becomes noticeable and the difference actually matters. This is under the assumption that you can't get a double bounce. Theoretically, the way to get the most healing is to have the last W double bounce to the person you want, but I think it's pretty hard and greedy to try to go for a double bounce every time. Players are going to be moving around and you won't know if your W will be in range unless they're all clumped. The only time it's pretty easy to get the double bounce is when it's a big team fight, and at that point I just look to W teammates that are low. We want to focus on the healing aspect of W to utilize Moonstone to its fullest. Earlier I said the hardest thing about Nami is landing her bubble, but the actual hardest thing is your AD carry picking Lucian because they want to play Lucian Nami. No! No, why? If you play a lot of Nami, you are going to run into so many bad Lucians that it's actually disturbing. Nami Lucian is actually a great duo bot, but it's just hard to coordinate with no comms and solo queue. My biggest advice on playing this is to wait for Lucian to E in before throwing out combo. You want to position in a way where you can still E him when he goes in, and you need to E him immediately when he does go in, or else you won't be able to utilize all 3 stacks. In order to be a good Nami, you need to limit test your bubbles a lot. It honestly sucks missing it, but trying and failing is the only way you're going to get better. You miss 100% of the bubbles you don't take. That's a completely original quote by me that I totally thought of, by the way. Thank you so much for watching. That is my updated Nami build for patch 14.8. I honestly think that Nami is a lot stronger than the last version, and it's a lot easier to play because you can just sit back and heal your entire team. I feel like Nami is one of the best blind picks because she has all the tools you need to deal with most situations and is now the most well-rounded enchanter. If you wanted to one-trick an enchanter, Nami is perfect. Good luck out there, summoners, and land those bubbles.